What does the Bible say about the place of women in the church? Now, this video is not about wives. This video is about the place of a woman in the church. And there are very many controversial Bible verses that a lot of pastors and believers skip over or explain away when they're reading the Bible that pertain to this subject. But these statements in the Bible are clear statements. They're not symbolic. They're not allegories. They're a clear statement. And it is to be interpreted clearly, not symbolic, which is a mistake many people make. But let's go over these Bible verses about the place of a woman in the church. Now, as I said before, this is a place of a woman in a spiritual capacity, a woman who wants to be a pastor, a leader, and what is the woman's place? Now, I have to inform you first that many people watching this video will be offended. That is not my concern. I'm not trying to offend you, but I have an obligation to teach the truth, the biblical truth, and that's what I'm doing. I hope you don't get offended, but if you get offended, I really can't help that. Now, please turn to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. It says, "Let a woman learn in quietness, with all subjection. But I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man, but to be in quietness." Now, this does, of course, apply to wives, yes. It applies to daughters and wives. But at the same time, it also applies to women in general who want to teach or exercise authority. So it does apply to wives, yes, but it mainly applies to women teaching or having authority. Now please turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 34. "Let the woman keep silent in the churches, for it has not been permitted to them to speak, but let them be in subjection, as the law also says." Now, well, this is something that Paul is carrying over into the New Testament, something in the law that is carried over into the New Testament. Well, let's see what the law says. Genesis chapter 3, verse 16. And to the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth, and you will bring forth children. And in pain you will bring forth children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." Now, this does, of course, apply to wives and, daughters, being under the authority of the man of their family. But Paul is associating this with women being in subjection in general, and therefore not being allowed a position to serve God. The law of Moses, delivered on Sinai, which was a temporary covenant, obviously, did not have any provisions for women having a position of spiritual authority. Now, Deborah was a prophetess. Deborah the judge was a prophetess, and she served God in a capacity because she had a gift of the Spirit. But she was not a leader of the people. She was a prophet that God spoke through, and they came to her for God's words. Please do not be confused. There's no provision for a Levite being a woman or a high priest of Aaron's line being a woman. There isn't any. There is no position in the Bible of authority over man that a woman has. That's in the law. Now, Paul is using that not to try to put us in the law, because Paul himself was trying to teach us that we're not under the law. But the law of Genesis 3:16, that was delivered before the law of Sinai. That's what people have to understand. That came from before Moses was born. That's something that Paul was trying to say. This is inherent in human nature. This has to do with men and women at all. It's part of the curse. And that's what Paul is trying to say. So because of that, we understand that it is God's will that a man represent him in a spiritual capacity. Women are in subjection to a man from the Garden of Eden, and there's no provision in the law. So we can understand that it's not God's will for a woman to lead or have authority over a man. That's what Paul was trying to teach. That was the idea of what he was trying to teach. Please also understand that women are given gifts of the Holy Spirit too, and they're to use them. They are servants of God like men are, and they serve God too. So please don't think I'm trying to be sexist or trying to put women in a little box in chains. I'm really not. Paul wrote all these things about women, and people would think Paul was very sexist, but Paul had a reputation for being more liberal towards women than the Jews or other Christian leaders or apostles. Paul was actually seen as being more free when it comes to women, and he didn't let them speak. See, people give Paul a bad name for these scriptures, but Paul was very liberal in other ways. Paul did not forbid women from using their gifts. Paul just did not want women in the congregation in a spiritual capacity having authority over a man, or really even speaking at all. I mean, because it is out of place for a woman, for a godly woman. Paul understood that. So serve God. Serve God with your gifts and pray about it, but do not take the position rightly given to a man. God will not bless you if you're going to try to have authority over a man. It's not his will. So find a way to serve God, but find a way to do it in a way that's obedient to God. And base your faith on the Bible, not on your intentions.